Hi, and thank you for joining me once again. Today, I'd just like to talk to you about four books that have quite a lot of power over the imagination of people and have done over the years. They've all stood the test of time, they've all been read by millions of people across the world, and they've all been turned into popular films. They have the ability to capture the imagination, but also to capture the heart of people. They tell a tale of good triumphing over evil. They all have the ability to inspire, challenge, comfort, and educate. But I wonder if you can spot the odd one out. I'm thinking particularly of The Lord of the Rings, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Pilgrim's Progress, and The Greatest Story Ever Told, or in other words, the Gospels, the story of Jesus. Lord of the Rings, of course, perhaps you watch the films and know of the story of the trilogy of the Hobbits, and who can forget those things that are planted in your imagination of Gollum or of the orcs, of the ring and the journey and the sense of camaraderie, the sense of adventure together. You may know that JRR Tolkien was a very close friend of C.S. Lewis. And together they talked about the books that they were writing, both prolific authors. C.S. Lewis wrote more than 30 books, including the Chronicles of Narnia. You may have come across The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. You may not have come across all 7 of those books, including The Last Battle, which is such an interesting finale to the Narnia stories. C.S. Lewis was invited by the BBC during the Second World War to give a series of talks which were eventually put into a book. A series of talks reminding us of the truly important things in life and showing the way to joy and contentment. Someone else wrote, C.S. Lewis is the ideal persuader of the half-convinced, for the good man who would like to be a Christian but finds his intellect getting in the way. Someone else here has a quite unique power for making theology an attractive and exciting and fascinating quest. And so I would encourage you to perhaps get hold of a copy of Mere Christianity and read it and see the challenge of Lewis's thinking. But the third of my 3 books today, John Bunyan, one of the great sons of Bedford, so to speak, 1662 to 1688. You may have seen his statue on St. Peter's Green in Bedford on the High Street. If you are able to download the PDF of this talk and the text, you might be able to read a little bit of the history of England in the 17th century. Hugely traumatic and turmoil time, both for the church and for the community and society. The church was under such change. Christmas and Easter and Whit Sunday and all the great major Christian festivals were put on hold when Oliver Cromwell took power from the king. And the 17th century Civil War, parliamentarians versus royalists, Charles I executed, Charles II exiled, Cromwell becoming the protector of England under the Protectorate. The Protestant Catholic issues of Ireland go back to those days. And there was the eventual restoration of the monarchy in 1660, the purging of the Church of England from dissenters and nonconformists, and the Act of Conformity and the Book of Common Prayer. Everybody must keep to these prayers and do this on a Sunday. And John Bunyan then refusing to do that. And spending 12 years in prison in Bedford, some of that on the little Bedford jail that used to sit on the Bedford Bridge. Well, during his time in jail, he wrote the third of our books, The Pilgrim's Progress, a journey from this world to the next. He has such a way of speaking that captures the imagination. Listen to this little phrase. John Bunyan said, "Dark clouds bring waters when bright skies bring none." So don't despair when life is difficult, because dark skies bring the water and the rain that refreshes and that is necessary for growth. His great book is remembered, Pilgrim's Progress. He wrote a number of books, but that's his most famous. And on the doors of the Bedford meeting house, and on the windows, on the inside, the pictures. Who can forget, having read the book, of the slough of despond, the mire of despondency that one comes across when you feel the burden of what you've done wrong and the things that make you ashamed. The friendships that come with hopeful and faithful being your companions to help you over the hill of difficulty. The people who would put you off walking in the right ways of life, pliable, money love and timorous. Getting stuck in Doubting Castle with a giant despair and discovering the key of promise that will let you escape from being beaten by giant despair day after day after day, holding on to the promises that were given to you at that time when you first came to the cross. The beautiful description of coming to the cross that he speaks about when he describes how the springs that were in his head opened and tears flowed down his cheeks. It's such a beautiful way of speaking, and I love the introduction of it. Let me read to you from the apology, as he calls it, the reason for writing it. But at the end he writes this: Art thou for something rare and profitable? Wouldst thou see a truth within a fable? Art thou forgetful, and wouldst thou remember from New Year's Day to the last of December? Then read my fancies, for they will stick like burrs, and may be to the helpless comforters. For this book is writ in such a dialect as may the minds of listless men affect. It seems a novelty, and yet contains nothing but sound and honest gospel strains. Wouldst thou divert thyself from melancholy? Wouldst thou be pleasant, and yet be far from folly? Wouldst thou read riddles and their explanation, or else be drowned in thy own contemplation? Dost thou love picking meat? Or wouldst thou see a man in the clouds and hear him speak to thee? Wouldst thou be in a dream and yet not asleep? Or wouldst thou in a moment laugh and weep? Wouldst thou lose thyself and catch no harm, and find thyself again without a charm? Wouldst thou read thyself, and read thou knowest not what, and yet know whether thou art blessed or not? Then come hither, lay my book, thy head and heart together. John Bunyan, 1660. I love that phrase. Then come hither, lay my book, thy head and heart together. Beautiful poetry. And the whole book is like that. And the illustrations in some of the books that you find in second-hand bookshops are just most amazing. And then I love the way in which, right at the end of the book, he has a conclusion, which I think is equally brilliant. It says, "Now, reader, I have told my dream to thee. See if thou canst interpret it to me, or to thy neighbour, or to thy friend. But take heed of misinterpreting it, for that instead of doing good to thyself, it will abuse. By misinterpreting it, evil ensues. So take heed, and don't be too extreme in playing with the outside of my dream. Don't let my figure of speech or similitude put thee into laughter or a feud. Leave those for the boys and for fools. But as for thee, look for the substance of the matter and see. Put away the curtain, look inside the veil. Turn up my metaphors, and do not fail there, if thou seekest them, to find such things as will be helpful to an honest mind. Well, what of my dross? If thou findest such there, then be bold to throw away, but preserve the gold. And what if my gold be wrapped up in lots of ore? Well, no one throws away the apple because of the core." I love that. And so I hope that perhaps looking at C.S. Lewis's books, or looking at Pilgrim's Progress afresh, you might find a blessing in all of that too. But which of these was the odd one out, I said right at the beginning, and the odd one out is that the greatest story ever told. The story of Jesus, the story of the Gospels, It's the greatest story. It's the most precious book. Here are some pictures of the way in which it's been treated over the years. Bejeweled, taken care of, hand scribed. This top one from the Lindau Gospels in Latin, written by the monks around about the time when St. Swithin was alive, 880, 1200 years ago, when Swithin lived here in Winchester. Jesus described as the word of life, the one who has the words of eternal life, says Peter. That's why it's so precious, because it's not just a story, it's not just a man-made thing. Whether or not you believe that the life of Jesus is the greatest story ever told, it has captivated millions of people for 2,000 years and exerted a massive influence on world history. The film The Greatest Story Ever Told in 1965 is an epic of 3 hours long. You can get it and watch it on the internet. One afternoon, sit down with a lovely cup of coffee or an ice cream and enjoy. But another that's brilliant for our children is The Miracle Maker. It's an animation. I love it. And you might be able to get a copy or to watch it again on the internet, The Miracle Maker. But why not read the book that you have, that so often people have, but they don't read it all in one go. All the other books that we've talked about are read from beginning to end. The Lord of the Rings, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, The Last Battle, Bunyan's book, The Pilgrim's Progress. They're all stories that go from beginning to end. Very few Christians read again and again the Gospels from beginning to end in one go. Mark's Gospel, I read this morning, only takes 1 hour to read. John's Gospel is 1 hour and 15 minutes. Read it as it is, a biography. It's not a made-up story. That's what makes it the odd one out from the others that we've spoken of. But nevertheless, don't just pick at it all the time with references here and references there. Why not take a moment to read through the whole Gospel from beginning to end? Not as a story, but as a biography. So my challenge, as I finished this morning, special offer for Christmas. If you would like to read any one of John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, C.S. Lewis's The Last Battle, C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity, or any of the 4 Gospels that you've got at home, if you can read one of those before the end of lockdown on December the 6th, I will personally deliver you 6 rectory free-range eggs. Now, you can't say fairer than that. There's a special offer, one-off. Take over the next 3 weeks sometime to read one of these great and classic books. And hopefully you will find it a blessing, and I'm sure you will enjoy the eggs when I bring them round to you. But may God bless you as you read the word of life in the Gospels of Jesus, or the experiences as Bunyan and C.S. Lewis have penned them to help you to walk in this life of ours. God bless you. Watch over you. Be strong. Stay in touch with people. And don't let the giant despair keep you in the castle for too long. Use your key of promise to escape and learn from one another. Hold on to faithful and courage. Let them be your companions as you progress through this life. Bless you. Thank you.